welcome to another video. This video is another one of my Power BI visuals that I built that I'm going to be publishing out to the gallery. Now, of course, like always, let's have a look at the piece of data first before we look at the visual. The piece of data that I have today is a series of sales requests by a company. Now, the company is getting all these requests and they divide into 4 different sales stages, them being leads, nurturing, proposals, and then a closed deal state. For all these requests, you can see that they're divided actually into 2 different sources, one coming from their direct customers and one coming from other businesses. So you can see there's all these requests. Now, the one thing for the business recently is that they've started to implement targets that the business needs to meet in terms of leads, say in customer and in business, in nurturer for customer and for business, and you get the pattern. This is where my new visual comes in, and it's called the Data Bar KPI visual. It had one explicit purpose, and it was to give you the ability to, based on the current value, be able to see if the current value is actually meeting the target that's set forth by the business. Now, the other part of it was that it needed to be done in the smallest amount of report space done possible, and let me show you that in an example. So I'll go ahead and take it and put it on the page. I'll go ahead and drag the number of requests that the business is receiving into the value field, and this will draw the beginning visual. Now you'll see at this point in time that it's a black background. And the reason why it's black is because there's no target that has been put into place. So we've got that 20,842 requests, but there's no target. You'll see how small it can even go as well, but more on that later. From there, let's actually bring in the maximum number of requests. So I'll put that into the max. Now at this point, you'll see that it becomes red. And the reason why it's red is because it's actually less than that max amount that we have set there. You'll notice here that if I hover over it, I get some more information, and I'll go into that in a little bit of detail later. We can then as well bring in the target number of requests that I was talking about earlier that have been set by the business. You'll see if I bring that target in, that what happens is it brings in this tiny little dotted line across the top. Now, this dotted line indicates where that red bar should actually be hitting. So if that red bar was to actually get to that dotted line, it would actually turn green, and hence they would have met the target. You can see as well now that hovering over the visual, we've got quite a bit of information. We have the requests, the target number of requests, the maximum number of requests, but even better, we've got the 2 gaps underneath. So we know that the gaps for the requests and the target number of requests is about 14% actually behind overall. We know that the gap between the requests and the maximum number is actually 38%, which is roughly 13,000 requests. Now, I want to concentrate on this as well. You'll notice if I actually take off the title, just how much smaller it can get. Now, the great thing about this is because it's that small now, if I was actually to switch across to the phone layout of this, you'll notice I can actually go take this, put this onto the page, and if I go and scale that, that now actually fits into 2 boxes in the phone view, which means you can get a lot of them onto a phone, which was key and pertinent to this visual. The other thing I'd like to point out is the other fields that you've got access to. So you'll notice there is category, value, target, max, and tooltips. We can think of on the left-hand side these stages as categories in a way. So I'm going to go ahead and take these categories and put them into the box. You'll notice once I do that, it actually stacks the items for me. And you can actually see that those targets and when it's exceeding them is coming into play. So say like closed deal, they've actually beat the target that was set by the business. You can see that reflected by the gap for the request and target number is actually 63% ahead now, which is fantastic. We've also got complete control over the formatting, but the one that's really nice is actually the ability to actually change this vertical stack to a horizontal stack. And you'll see once it changes to that horizontal, I can actually bring that across. What a lot of people also like to do is they love to go to the categories, and they'll actually switch these categories. Instead of being on the left, they'll actually switch that to being on top. And you start to get the picture. We can change the size of the text as well. and that looks better. You'll see a lot of people actually using the visual to say make this smaller and then make this actually be a hero visual across the top as well of your report. And with that, that's the Data Bar KPI. You can see that I accidentally clicked that, but yes, it does also have cross-highlighting support where you can actually go and actually click, and you'll see it changing on the bottom left there. With that, that is the Data Bar KPI visual. It was a pleasure to create, and it really meets that expectation. Let's show a KPI, but let's also do it in the minimum amount of space possible as shown. You've got the ability to provide extra data for tooltips, make it as small as you can, and be sure to tune in to my next video. Well, actually I'll go through the formatting of the visual and all the extra formatting options you can do to it. So with that, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you for watching this video, and hope you love using